Hi, my name is Don Peasley. It came through my wife's side of the family. Found out shortly after we were married that her father had Huntington's disease. And to get smarter on the disease, we went to the University of Michigan, met with the neurology department there, and they explained the disease to us. They explained the implications for my wife, who was in her 30s, nowhere near symptomatic at the time. And helped us kind of map out a plan and introduced us to some resources through HDSA. We didn't take advantage of those resources at the time. We just decided to live our life. We had a kid, and then when symptoms came into town, that's when we started to really tap in. And what's interesting is I'm on the Michigan chapter. I've been on the board for 4 years now, and there were some names on the pamphlets of paper that I was handed in 1997. That were still on the board and still in the Huntington's community, either on the board or social workers. So when I needed it, HDSA was there. I went to support groups. I've since spoken at support groups. And I think that's the thing that I think about the most is when I went from not knowing what Huntington's was to understanding the science of it, immediately somebody stuck out a hand and said, when you're ready and when you're in need, there's a group out there that can help. And so that's my connection to the community that I didn't know anything about. Then I did, and now I'm a part of it. When you think about a disease that affects so few people, you can get a little focused in on why it's going to be hard to get people to help out HDSA. When you actually think about the number of people that those people know that have nothing to do with Huntington's disease, but they love somebody, they have a friendship with somebody, they hear about somebody, that's when we can start to grow our network outside of those families and patients who we serve. So what I find is really important is to talk about Huntington's disease. And almost always you're in education mode. And then when people understand it, they understand what you're dealing with, they'll end up talking to somebody else. I have 2 board members, new board members who have joined us, no connection to the disease other than they either heard my story from me and my wife's story from me, or they heard about my wife and my at-risk son from somebody who knows and loves our family. And it's amazing what happens when you get out and you talk and you share what this is. And help people understand that if you're looking for a place where you can make a difference, there's a lot of other bigger, more well-known medical conditions out there, but there's a little one out there that could benefit from just a little bit of your time. So if we can find those people that, if they're not in the community, but understand how much of an impact they can make by joining our community, that's how we can keep the community strong, support those who both volunteer for HDSA, but are also dealing with their own HD journey with themselves or with their family members. So it's just important to talk, and you never know who's going to come your way. One is in building the community, as I mentioned, talking to people not in the community and thinking about ways to bring those 2 worlds together. So rationalizing your life that's affected by Huntington's and making that not a bad part about the rest of your life, but make it an interesting part about your life. When you can talk about the challenges of caregiving, when you can talk about what it's like to parent an at-risk teen, and when you can talk about that to people, it transcends talking about Huntington's disease. And what I have found is that it motivates people to either help you or step up and help what you're doing for HDSA, or maybe it just helps motivate them to think about how could I be spending my time in service of others. So again, I think it's sharing these stories, not being the downer at the party, but just having these commonalities. Everybody is dealing with something. Not everyone's dealing with Huntington's, but everyone is dealing with something. And being vulnerable and telling our family story, or telling the story of somebody that I've met along the way, sharing that with someone outside the community, I've always found that in some way ends up paying some benefits. And maybe I'm not around to see what those benefits are, but just again, sharing your vulnerability with other people is okay, and it actually produces some really positive outcomes. The second thing for those of us in the community and those of us who volunteer a little or a lot of our time, remember that at some point you're going to need the help that all the fundraising and all the awareness building that comes from that. And I'm in there right now. I'm at a point where I need to get some advice and counsel on how to deal with the next phase of my wife's journey. And I have reached out to our social worker. I have reached out to a member of the Milwaukee chapter who knows this journey very well. And I have felt immensely supported by HDSA by recognizing that I need to stop being a board member. I need to stop being a fundraiser and an advocate. I need to be a husband to a woman I love who's going through a tough patch, and I need to figure out how to do what I can to give her the best quality of life. And so it's okay to take one hat off and be the recipient of all the good things that HDSA does.